Today, we're going to dive into a case that's, well, it's both tragic and incredibly important. It's called Yunker versus Honeywell, and it's a story that really changed the game on how we view an employer's responsibility for what their employees do. Okay, so let's just get right to the heart of it with this shocking question. And just to be clear, this isn't some law school hypothetical. These are the actual, horrifying facts that push the legal system to create a whole new standard for corporate responsibility. All right, to really get what the court was grappling with, we have to walk through the timeline. The sequence of events here is, well, it's everything. So just look at this timeline. It lays out a pattern that is honestly just chilling. It starts in 1979. Randy Landon kills a coworker and goes to prison. 5 years later, believe it or not, Honeywell rehires him. Fast forward to 1988, and he starts harassing another coworker, Kathleen Nesser. She does the right thing, she reports it, then a death threat shows up on her locker, he quits, and just a couple weeks later, he goes to her home and murders her. So after Kathleen Nesser was murdered, her family decides to sue Honeywell. Landon was already going away for life, so this lawsuit wasn't really about him anymore. It was about holding the company accountable, which created this really tough legal puzzle for the courts to solve. And that's the thing, this lawsuit completely changes the game. The argument wasn't just about what this one man did. It was about whether the company he worked for had failed in its duty to protect its employees. So the family's lawyers came at Honeywell with 3 specific legal claims. Think of it like a 3-pronged attack. And as we're about to see, the court handled each one completely differently. All right, so let's get into the legal weeds a bit. The court first tackled 2 of those 3 claims, negligent supervision and negligent hiring. And spoiler alert, both of them failed. Let's talk about why. First up, you've got this idea of negligent supervision. The court basically said, look, this legal theory has a very tight leash. It's all about what happens on the company's turf, with the company's stuff. And right there, that's exactly why this argument fell flat. The murder didn't happen at Honeywell. It didn't involve company property. It happened at Kathleen Nesser's home, well after work hours. So legally speaking, it was way outside that tight leash of supervision. Okay, next up is negligent hiring. Now, people get this confused with negligent retention all the time, but the difference is simple, and it's all about timing. Negligent hiring is like a snapshot. It only cares about what the employer knew the second they hired the person. But negligent retention? That's a whole movie. It's about everything that happened during their employment. So, for the hiring claim, the court put on blinders and only looked at that one moment in 1984 when Honeywell rehired Landon. And they asked, was his job as a maintenance worker inherently super risky? They decided, no, it wasn't like they gave him keys to people's apartments or something like that. But there was another, even bigger reason this failed. The court brought up this major public policy concern. They basically said, hey, if we hold Honeywell responsible just for hiring an ex-felon, what message does that send? No company would ever take a chance on someone with a record again. It would totally gut the whole idea of rehabilitation. So with 2 arguments down, the whole case, everything came down to that third and final claim, negligent retention. And this is where the whole story just takes a massive turn. Right, so remember our analogy? We're done with the snapshot of the hiring moment. Now we're watching the whole movie. That 4-year period, Landon was back at Honeywell. The question is totally different now. It's not about the hiring decision. It's about what the company found out after he was on the job and what they did or didn't do about it. And this part is so important. The court basically said, forget the 1979 murder for a second. That's in the past. The real focus here is the new stuff, the fresh evidence of his dangerous behavior that popped up between 84 and 88. And when you look at what the court found, it wasn't just one little thing. It was this clear, escalating pattern. We're talking sexual harassment of female employees, challenging a male coworker to a fight, threatening to kill another coworker over a car accident, and then, of course, the abuse towards Kathleen Nesser when she rejected him, leading to that death threat scratched on her locker. And that whole string of events was the turning point. The court looked at all of it and said, you know what? Based on everything Honeywell knew, future violence wasn't just possible, it was foreseeable. That's the magic legal word right there. So, how did this all shake out? Let's break down the court's final decision, because it wasn't a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. It was much more surgical than that. Okay, here's the 3-step breakdown. Step 1, the court agreed with dismissing the negligent hiring and supervision claims. Those are gone for good. Step 2, But, and this is the big one, they reversed the dismissal of the negligent retention claim. They brought it back to life. And step 3, they remanded the case. That means they sent that one single claim back down to be decided by a jury. So, why are we still talking about this case today? What's the big deal? Well, it's because this tragedy fundamentally rewrote the rules for what an employer's duty to its workers really means. At the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is this. An employer's job to keep people safe doesn't just stop. It's not a one-and-done thing at the hiring desk. The court basically said that if a company learns an employee is a potential danger, they have to do something about it, even if that danger boils over outside the walls of the workplace. And this quote from the court really just hits the nail on the head. Yes, giving ex-offenders a second chance is incredibly important, but the court drew a line in the sand. That goal can't come at the expense of everyone else's safety, especially when you have clear, specific warning signs that more violence is on the way. You know, this case gives us a legal answer, but it leaves us with this massive, ongoing question that's still so relevant today. There are no easy answers here, but what Yunker versus Honeywell did was force every single employer to wrestle with this incredibly tough balancing act between second chances and safety, and it's a question they really can't afford to get wrong.